From the center of the universe, now in its 7th season covering your 19-time Grey Cup champion Toronto Argonauts, it's the X's and Argos podcast with Argos color analyst Ben Grant and Coach JB.
Welcome to the X's and Argos pregame walkthrough brought to you by Something in the Water Brewing. My name is Ben Grant, joined as always by JB, and we are here to get you set for week 3 of the 2025 CFL season with your 0-2 Toronto Argonauts hosting the 2-0 Saskatchewan Roughriders Friday night at BMO Field. Here is what is on the docket for this week. First of all, transactions, couple of moves made as the Argos are pretty banged up heading into this one. 2 more Argonauts are going to be heading into the all-time Argos list. We'll tell you about them. Plus, we're going to go over the QB situation, talk about the offensive production in general. Then we've got our game preview, an injury report, pick 6, OCDC, one thing, put me down for 20, challenge flag, and our ticket draw courtesy of Something in the Water Brewing. All that and more coming up on this episode of the X's and Argos podcast. All right, JB, before we get into everything, let's talk a little bit about Something in the Water Brewing. This is the perfect week to go to Something in the Water pregame. BMO Field, Friday night, 7:30. That gives you time between work and play to head down to Something in the Water Brewing. And it's the perfect location. It's right in the heart of Liberty Village. You can walk. It's just a few steps to BMO Field. Try some of their award-winning beer. Try Longboat Pale Ale, the beer that was made for you, fans of the Double Blue. Plus, they got all sorts of great beer to choose from. Hazy Maitland, Tortuga. You can go on and on. They've got award-winning beers that placed second in world competitions. You name it, it is there at Something in the Water Brewing. Hopefully, we will see you there pregame. Let's get to it, JB. Lots to cover today. We will see if we can blast through some of these news stories, I guess. A lot of stuff breaking today. First of all, let's start with the transactions. So we know there were a lot of injuries in the Calgary game. It seems like the team has responded to those today by bringing in running back Kevin Brown, who we're familiar with, and a linebacker Aaron Casey. Let's talk about Brown first. So this is in response to Deonta McMahon's injury, and we'll talk more about that later. Really convenient to have the ability to call in a guy that knows the offense, was just with the team as recently as a couple weeks ago. But I know immediately, as soon as I saw this, I knew what was coming, and that was people saying could have been Kadeem Carey, and so on and so on. How do the Argos ever put that story to rest? Even as good a game as Mayan Williams had this past week, JB, people are still talking about Kadeem Carey. When will it go away?
Well, I mean, I think it'll go away when Carey has a poor game, or somebody in Toronto has a real standout game. Yeah, I mean, the Brown signing doesn't help the fire. I can't deny that.
I know I didn't put it together initially. I just thought, okay, that makes sense. Bring Kevin Brown back in. I like that move. And then immediately I was hit with all this Kadeem Carey stuff. So again, this will subside, and the Argos can control some of that. You talk about waiting to see Kadeem Carey have a bad game. Well, he was backing up AJ Ouellette last week, ran the ball well, didn't get the opportunities that AJ did. He had a huge game. And so we'll see how those guys perform. The 2 former Argo running backs coming in a tandem backfield situation. We'll see how that goes this week. But the Argos can control a lot of that narrative. And linebacker Aaron Casey, I can tell you a little bit about him. He's in for the Wynton McManus injury, and we'll give you more details on that in a little bit. Just adding some depth. I don't expect him to jump right onto the field. I think there's going to be some time there, but you need bodies. And so I wouldn't even be necessarily surprised to see him dress. I don't think we'll see him out there starting anytime soon, but I could be wrong. He's a very gifted linebacker. He played 5 seasons at Indiana, spent some time with the Cincinnati Bengals. When I look at his tape, and admittedly I only grazed through it, he comes across as a very effective run stopper. He played middle linebacker. He played on sort of, he also played, left and right side in the middle, but he spent most of his time in the box, and that was his skill set, coming up and shutting down the run. Does not look like Wynton McManus in pass coverage. Most middle linebackers don't, but he does have some heft to him. And if you're looking to stop a power running game, and there's a bunch of teams in the league that seem to want to throw these big backs at you. He's a guy that can potentially step up and take care of that at some point. So those are the two big signings from today, Kevin Brown and Aaron Casey. JB, no surprise probably on your part to see Nick Volpe and Chris Schultz were the two Argos that were named to be added to the all-time Argos list. We talked a lot about Chris Schultz since his passing, and I think everyone listening to this podcast, if you're listening to an Argos podcast, you 100% know who Chris Schultz is. I would still encourage you to go to argonauts.ca, read the article that is up about both men and their contributions to the team. Chris Schultz, obviously, with 9 seasons playing for the Toronto Argonauts, you got a Grey Cup in there too. But there's so much more to Chris Schultz than his 2-time All-Star nominations and the successes on the field. It's the stuff off the field that I think he's more remembered for. As good a player as he was, it's that off-field stuff. It's the pure later tackle hunger contributions. It's his time spent as a broadcaster doing his work on TSN and doing his work on the Fan 590 and calling the games as well alongside Mike Hogan. Like, that is where fans really got to know him and what an amazing person he was. And so I couldn't be happier to see him be named an all-time Argo. We knew it was coming at some point, and I'm glad it's now. And then Nick Volpe, maybe best known for the Mud Bowl game, the 13-0 Grey Cup win back in 1950 over Winnipeg, where the story behind that, I don't know if you know about the Mud Bowl, was a long time ago. It does predate us, JB, but if you're listening and you're like, I don't know if I've heard about this Mud Bowl, don't know what it is. Basically, it was a really heavy snowfall followed by very warm weather, and you ended up with Varsity Stadium just entirely covered in mud. And it was probably one of the worst football games of all time, but a Grey Cup classic because of the nature of it. And there's one touchdown on the day, a rouge, couple field goals thrown in there, and Volpe was the man kicking the field goals. And he spent decades being associated with the Toronto Argonauts organization. And so great to see him added to the all-time Argos list as well.
Yeah, incredibly deserving. It's obvious, but it's really nice that it's come through and nice to see.
The quarterback situation, JB, let's get to it. So in our post-game reaction pod, we both acknowledged that we would probably start someone other than Arbuckle this week. I think that's certainly my instinct. I felt like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I felt like that's what you were also saying on Saturday night after the Argos loss. Yeah,
I don't think it's disrespectful for everything that Arbuckle did last season. He's had 2 starts. I didn't feel either start was great. Obviously I'm shooting in the dark here because I'm not watching practice. I haven't seen what the other quarterbacks are doing or where they are in their preparation or how they are in the meeting rooms and knowing the playbook. So of course it's not an educated opinion, but philosophically, I don't see any reason not to roll the dice if the quarterback is ready, because you're not worried about a quarterback controversy. Arbuckle obviously is not the starter. I think you're trying to jumpstart what is not a great start to the season. So if a backup was ready, I would go with the backup.
I want to shout out Sportsnet's Dave Morisuti, your press box neighbor, JB, and he's so much. Dave's so much fun to hang out with. It's one of my favorite parts of going to practice and getting to hang out with Dave, and same on game day as well. But he did us a huge favor today, and he caught up with Coach Dinwiddie to talk to him after the game, and he was sort of tallying snaps through a practice today because neither of us were able to make it down for that. And what Morisuti was saying is that Arbuckle was taking first-team snaps, but in talking with Dinwiddie, it seemed like Jared Dagey was getting more action than usual. And Arbuckle, I think, is going to be the starter this week. I understand what Coach Dinwiddie's plan is. And like you said, JB, like he knows better than we do. There's no question. He's around there every day. He is there in the meetings. He's there on the field for every single snap. We aren't. And what it sounded like in his interview with David, was he talked about Tucker Horn still being very green, still being very new. And he talked about Jared Dagey still not having had enough snaps, just not enough time in the offense to be a better option than a guy like Nick Arbuckle, who Coach Dinwiddie has been working with for like a decade. Like it goes way back. And so I get it from that standpoint. And then an interesting point that David brought up too is that it's also the Saskatchewan Roughriders who are playing really good football right now. They've got a very experienced secondary, almost all of that group coming back from last year. And so is that really a fair scenario to throw Jared Dagey into, who still doesn't have a full grasp of the offense, most likely, and Tucker Horn, who's never had a regular season snap as a CFL player? So from that standpoint, I get it. I totally get it. I wonder, though, if he might have a little shorter leash, because it seemed like it was never really a question on Saturday. He was going to start and finish the game. And to be fair, he did bring Toronto back within one defensive stop of driving for a tie, potentially a win. But there just wasn't enough offensive production. So like, what's the answer? If Chad Kelly isn't going to be back, obviously he's not coming back this week. I don't know, without seeing him practice full at all this week. Like if he doesn't, does that mean he's out next week too? Like, JB, what are the answers for the offense? How does this team get more offensive production if they can't go to Chad Kelly soon?
Well, I think it's similar to previous years. The only problem is that we do not have the defense or the special teams that those teams had, which really helped, the Argos. The Argos are last by a fair distance in terms of starting field position. So they are not able to play complementary football right now. So I hate to pour it all on the quarterback, because the defense with injuries and special teams with injuries, I don't want to be too pessimistic, but I don't see any way this offense can be successful unless the punt return and the kick return game become elite, and the defense is able to get takeaways and to get stops. It's just too much heavy lifting for the offense. We knew that the offense was probably going to have to do heavy lifting this season because the defense had lost so many players, and just for this opening bit, it's too much to do. I think it's like trying to lift 400 pounds. Like it doesn't matter how much you want to do it. It's just not possible. I don't see how the offense is going to be successful until they can get better starting field position. And without Wynton McManus at defense, it's a pretty uphill battle.
You can survive this field position with Chad Kelly at the helm. Like if you've got the best one of the best quarterbacks, like you can do it. But you're right. Like if you don't have your number one quarterback, you don't have a guy like that, then yeah, field position is huge, because we saw a few drives where if they had started from midfield would have resulted in scores, and that would have been the difference in the game. We're only looking for one or two scores down the stretch, and that could have been a difference. So yeah, that's huge. But when I took a close look at the offense this past week. I went back to the Montreal offense too, watched a little bit of that game again, rewatched the Calgary game. It's hard to, and I don't want to put it all in Nick Arbuckle because I don't think that's fair. I don't think it is a team game. It's not just one guy, but you're getting pretty good play. It's just not really Nick Arbuckle's system. And Coach Dinwiddie's been pretty good over the years of adapting his offense to the strengths of his quarterback. And I think maybe, and this is a little teaser into OCDC, we need to probably do a little bit more, go a little heavier towards the stuff Arbuckle really does well this week. Because I thought the offensive line played pretty well, especially the right side. Right side of the line was they were locked down. Like there wasn't pressure coming through there. And the left side, Dockstader and Moore, it was better. There were improvements. There was still some trouble, especially with Flo Remalade, some of the speed that he had around the edge. But in general, those two guys were better, and the right side was awesome. Nicastro had an amazing game. He was lined up one-on-one so many times, and he handled it on all but like one occasion really well. So the line was good. the receivers are healthy. Like, these are the guys they're going forward with. Unless Makai Polk comes back from the Falcons, there's nobody getting added to this receiver room. So, like, this is what you're going to have to work with. And then the running game came through. Mayan Williams had a big game. So really, if you're looking around and saying, well, who's not contributing here, it comes back to the quarterback. And I don't believe it's a question of Nick Arbuckle's just not capable. I think he is. I think you have to play mistake-free. You can't end up with penalties, and you can't shoot yourself in the foot with interceptions, pick sixes especially. That was huge. You have to play really smart football, and that's okay sometimes if you have to punt it away. But like you say, these other units they got to do their part too. That return game needs to be better this week as well, and that will help offensive production. All right, JB, game preview. Let's get into it. Friday night, 7:30 at BMO Field. It's Pride Night. Before we get into like Saskatchewan coming to town, the Argos always do a great job with Pride Night. They got. I hope there's more added to some of the swag that you can get. Some of the merch. Mine always gets stolen by my wife and my kids. I have bought the hat and the T-shirt in the past, and they're in my kids' closet now. Yeah, hopefully there's more to choose from there as well this year. They always put on a great show. Pride Night is always a fun game, JB.
Yeah, it's nice to see. Certainly, Pride in Ontario and Pride in Toronto has taken some hits with our new political reality south of us. A lot of corporations are getting out of the rainbow washing business and are not giving money to Pride anymore. So it's great to see MLSE continuing to support Pride when other corporations are running. I think it's important. It's important for an organization to be a part of its community, to be a welcome spot for all fans, for everybody to feel like they are part of it. And I think it's great that they do it. I love that it's become a tradition on the calendar in June. It's really a pleasure to see and to support.
Yeah, for sure. And add to that, you've got the Saskatchewan Roughriders coming to town, 2-0 against 0-2. This is going to be a tough one, and some familiar faces. Corey Mace obviously leading that pack, and then we talk about that running back room, AJ Ouellette and Kadeem Carey. Plus, there are a number of others. You got Tate in there playing guard, and there's a bunch of former Argos strewn throughout that roster. Tommy Neal's in there. A bunch of other guys throughout their practice squad too. So this is a big one, not just for the Argos. It's not like you highlighted in our post-game reaction pod. If they lose this game, it's not the end of the world because Ottawa and Hamilton haven't run off anywhere. That's true. You just don't want to you do not want Montreal to get that far away. I think you can't 2 games into the season just concede, Montreal's going to finish first. Yeah, I know they look great. You can't concede that. And so I want to put down a win here for the Argos so that they can be within striking distance still of Montreal, because of course there are more games coming up that are going to potentially bring that team a little closer. On the other side, everybody in the West is going to be cheering for the Toronto Argonauts in this one, because you've got a couple teams that are really starting to distance themselves. It's early. Like, nobody in the West, I don't think, expected Calgary to come out 0-2. And they've got a favorable matchup this week against Ottawa. You can only have so many teams with great undefeated starts before you, as the BC Lions, as the Edmonton Elks, start getting very concerned, looking around saying, hey, we gotta do something here, because you got Winnipeg, you got Saskatchewan, you got Calgary, who are lighting it up right now. So this becomes a very big game for both teams, and everybody in the league is going to be watching this one. Let's get into that injury report, JB. For Saskatchewan, the only one that really stands out to me that I think is worth highlighting is Sam Emilus. He got off to a great start to the season. He's a very dangerous receiver. He's got a foot injury, did not practice today. We'll see how that goes for the rest of the week. But this is a pretty banged up squad. They've got, they still don't have Sean Bain back. And so that is a pretty banged up Canadian heavy offense, because I think they have 3 Americans on the offensive line. So they've gone Canadian heavy at receivers, obviously with your American backs. And so losing a guy like Emilus would be difficult for them. I think that would really limit them offensively. So we'll have to keep track of that throughout the week. For the Argos, it's pretty dire from an injury standpoint. There are a lot of names on that. I had to scroll through the injury list when it was sent to us today, JB. Went down through name after name. So let's go through a couple of these guys, and I can give you some updates. So Jack Cassar did not practice today. He's got an adductor injury, and again, one of the reasons with he and McManus potentially out, that's why we talked about bringing in a guy like Casey, we talked about earlier. DeMarcus Christmas suffered an Achilles injury. He did not practice today. He was put on the 6-game injured list. In fact, I went back and watched that, and I don't know how to gauge this, but I've seen a number of like season-ending Achilles injuries. It didn't look like that to me, and just the fact that he was able to get up and walk off under his own steam. And so I'm going to look at that as positive and hope that DeMarcus Christmas can be back after spending 6 games on the shelf. We'll have to see about that. I haven't heard any update on that other than the 6-game injured list. Darius Sirocco still out with the foot injury, did not practice. Tavares Daniels was limited with a hip injury. Sage Dockstader with a knee injury did not practice today. That's concerning, clearly. Janarian Grant still limited with the ankle injury, as he has been. Haralamana did not practice with a hamstring injury. Chad Kelly still limited with the leg injury. Daniel Kwamu was able to go full. He missed last week with a knee injury, so him being potentially back is great news. Mac Mahan did not practice with the ankle injury. We got a bit of an update on him, courtesy of David Morassutti. Coach Dinwiddie said he was looking at 2 to 4 weeks for Mac Mahan, and he added in, he felt it might be closer to that 4. Because of the nature of ankle injuries. We'll have to wait and see on that, but he'll be on the 1-game injured list for this week. And then Winton McManus also appears to be sort of a week-to-week. Dinwiddie referred to that as a 1 or 2 week injury. And just like we've talked about with Chad Kelly, I think you want to err on the side of caution there and get Winton healthy before bringing him back. And then Donald Rutledge was able to practice full. That's a great sign, and he might be able to rejoin the roster this week. JB, what do you make of this this injury report that seems to, it almost looks like an all-star team, actually?
Yeah, I mean, things are not great in Argoland. They have been largely pretty healthy the last couple of seasons, and I guess they are regressing to the mean statistically here. This is I don't want to say it's looking like a lost season in game 3.
You can,
but sometimes you just get a bad hand dealt against you when it comes to injuries, and right now they're absolutely being buried under it, and you just can't overcome a lot of these injuries. There are so many load-bearing walls in that list. You just can't roll the next guy up, as much as coaches talk about that. If the next guy up was just as good, then everybody in the league would be making $300,000.
Yeah,
but they're not.
It's a tough list. Like Cassar, best special teams tackler on the team. Christmas, a starter at defensive tackle. Sirocco, an all-star center. Tavares Daniels, team leader as a receiver. Dockstader, starting guard. Janarian Grant, all-star punt returner. Harry Lamanna, again, a special teams ace. Chad Kelly, best quarterback in the league potentially. Kwamu has been all over the field on specials, actually on defense as well. He's looked really good before coming out this past week. Mac Mahan, a starting running back. Winton McManus, one of the best defensive players in the entire league, and Donald Rutledge, your starting Sam. Like this is a list. But the reason that I'm not as negative on this, I think, is as you are, JB. Like they have, first of all, I think they have been through this. Like they have been injured the last 2 seasons. It's just there was so much depth that it actually almost worked in their favor in some ways, because you got guys rest and other guys experience. This team doesn't have the same depth, and so this looks really dire. The thing is, though, these guys are going to come back. Most of them are going to come back, and so we don't know the full details on everybody here. But Winton McManus is coming back. Chad Kelly is coming back. Janarian Grant is coming back. Deontay McMahon is coming back. That these guys are going to come back into the fold when these games start ramping up a little bit in their urgency and intensity. And they're going to be going up against teams who are starting to wear down a little bit. So I'm not as worried. I would much rather my injury list look like this now than in October, where you just can't afford to lose guys. So if you're going to go through the injury bug at some point, then yeah, bring it on in June. You never want it, but I think bring it on in June. And Saskatchewan doesn't want to hear any of this. They've lost so many starters already. They were a banged up team in training camp, and so they're still trying to patch some things together. But it's a little different when you're 2-0 versus 0-2. All right, JB, let's get into Pick 6. This is a segment brought to you by Something in the Water Brewing. They will give you a 6-pack if you can provide us with a question that we answer on this podcast. And our winner this week is Bob Marshall. Bob has sent us a question that I think is kind of fun to address, and we'll talk about it right now, JB. So Bob Marshall, you can go on down to Something in the Water Brewing, pick up your 6-pack of beer, and we will send them your name so that they know you're coming. Bob's question is as follows, JB. The Argos do not use a fullback in their offense, yet other CFL teams use fullbacks, mostly as blockers, sometimes as ball carriers. Why do you think Coach Dinwiddie does not use a fullback? I will let you start, and I'll wrap it up.
Well, I mean, I think just philosophically, he doesn't really believe in them in his offense. He's not looking to run that power run. He would rather have an offensive player that he can exploit a mismatch with. My guess would be he just has not seen an athlete that he thought was, a mismatch problem for the opponent, so therefore deserving to be on the field. I think he feels like I'd rather have an extra offensive lineman if I'm trying to run to the edge rather than a fullback, because the offensive lineman can do the job better than a fullback. I'd rather throw to my running back than throw to my fullback. I just don't think, much like, some teams, don't have much time for a tight end. I just think philosophically, he thinks that there are just more talented football players he can get on the field. If I were to guess what is in his mind.
I agree with everything you said, except I think he does actually want a fullback. I've talked to him about this before, admittedly a couple of years ago, but yeah, he wanted a fullback. He just hasn't found, they've drafted fullbacks, they've brought guys in, they brought some really good fullbacks in, and it just hasn't worked. And like you say, philosophically, you say, well, do I want him running the ball? Well, no, why wouldn't I want my running back running the ball? Well, what about him as a blocker? Well, isn't Dylan Giffen a better blocker if I'm lining him up instead? I want him blocking. And as a receiver, well, shouldn't I instead throw to a bigger receiver who can also block and who can be out there as a heavy package? A guy like Kevin Mittal, for example, who I'd much rather have the ball in his hands than a fullback. And so I think what it boils down to is you would need a pretty special athlete to play fullback in Coach Dinwiddie's offense. And he just hasn't found that guy. A lot of Canadian teams use fullbacks as special teams aces. Coach Dinwiddie tends to go the linebacker route there. You see how many will linebackers, actually both linebacker spots, they dress a ton of guys who are all special team studs. And I think philosophically, he and this organization just find that they get better special teams play out of that position than they do out of the fullback position. So I think that's why Coach Dinwiddie doesn't use a fullback. Again, I don't think he has anything against them. It's just that it would take a very, very special player for him to believe that they're a better blocker than one of his linemen, a better receiver than one of his receivers, and a better runner than one of his running backs. And that's a pretty rare individual we're talking about.
I mean, maybe he had a traumatic incident with the fullback in his youth.
Back at Boise State, we'll have to dig up some more stuff. Maybe,
which is fair play too.
Maybe Pop Warner, and he's like, you know what? When I'm a head coach, I'm not even going to have fullbacks out there.
Exactly. We'll see who's the boss now, fullback.
It's time for OCDC. For OCDC, JB will handle both defenses. I'll handle both offenses. We'll give you our plan for how we would attack the opposition when Saskatchewan goes up against Toronto this week. JB, I'll start things off. So let's do the bad guys first. The Saskatchewan Roughriders. My plan for this week, is play action, play action, play action. You look at the running success that Saskatchewan had last week, and you know that these are two former Argonauts in AJ Ouellette, Kadeem Carey. You can bet that the Toronto Argonauts defense is preparing to stop the run. They are going to sell out to stop these guys. And so if I'm Saskatchewan's offensive coordinator and coming up with my plan, I'm going to try and play off that. So heavy play action and see if you can take advantage of those non-Winton McManus linebackers really crowding in. Judge is a tough guy to fool, and he'll cause problems certainly for the Roughriders, but he may end up having to do someone else's job a little bit too. I felt like that started to happen a little bit at the end of last week's game, where Judge was just all over the field, trying to do more than just his own role, because he sort of had to, and he can. It's tough to maintain that for a full game though. So I think going heavy on play action, you look for hooks to your slot receivers, digs and glance routes in behind that linebacker level, and then really test the linebackers in their disciplines too. Quick screens, bubbles, swing passes out to your backs. Get those backs involved. Those are, I think, maybe it doesn't get talked about enough how good both Ouellette and Carey are as receivers. Get the ball in their hands that way. You can still, I think it is going to be tough for Saskatchewan to run the football this week, but like we saw with Mayan Williams last week, you can find other ways to get those running backs involved by getting them set up in the passing game. So get them out into the flats, get them out on those swings, and once you get into the second half, now you can start pounding the football a little bit once that defense is softened up. So that is my offensive plan for the Saskatchewan Roughriders. JB, what is your defensive plan for the Green Riders?
Well, if I'm Saskatchewan, I think one of the problems Toronto has, I think I've used this analogy before, but like in hockey, if you don't have a good penalty kill, unfortunately what happens is that teams take more chances and apply more pressure than they would even if you had an average penalty kill. So it compounds the problem that not only is your penalty kill not good, but teams are now pushing and trying things that they would never try otherwise. And so now you're kind of really in a bind. And I think Toronto's offense is, at a point where teams are simply going to bring way more heat than they ever would against even an average offense, which might work against an average offense, but a team just wouldn't gamble as much. And I think Saskatchewan is just simply going to disrespect Toronto. I think that if I'm the defensive coordinator, I'm bringing the players from everywhere. I'm running cover zero way more than I ever would. I'm basically daring Toronto to make me pay. And I'm just going to, essentially not worry about the run at all and get after Arbuckle, who has not shown much ability to be mobile, even on the play fakes. Unless Toronto's going to start running Arbuckle on those play fakes, I'm not even looking at the play fake. I'm just sending heat inside and sending heat straight down the middle of the pipe. And that's going to make things really difficult for the offensive line.
Switching over to the other side of the football, the good guys, looking for the Toronto Argonauts, and I'll go back to the Argos offense. I think it's going to be Arbuckle this week. I think you have to go back to the stuff that Arbuckle does really well. I talked about this when we were talking about the quarterback situation earlier in the pod. I think you go back to a lot of that Georgia State stuff, like see what the Panthers were doing when Arbuckle was playing there, because it's that sort of stuff that I feel like he's done well at the CFL level too. In those games where he did play well under Coach Dinwiddie back in 2021, it was a lot of this stuff. It was RPOs, it was quick strikes and rhythm. It was a vertical game too, like slot fades and seam routes. Like those were built in as well, but they're built off of intelligent reads, quick processing from the quarterback, and throws in rhythm. Catch ball, take a step, fire a football. Catch ball, take a step, fire a football. That RPO game, I really can't overstate how difficult that is for most quarterbacks. And I do feel like Nick Arbuckle has a gift for that. And so I want more of that, even more of that this week. So that's where it's going to start. Let's get back to Georgia State stuff. Other things that I think that Toronto can do, I think you want to attack the field side. I do think you want to stay away from Roland Milligan as much as you can. He's a problem. He is one of the best defenders in the CFL, and I don't think you want to have him anywhere near the football if you can avoid it. You can almost use DeVaris Daniels just to basically eliminate Milligan because they're going to be lined up over top of each other quite a bit. I'm fine with that trade-off. I'm okay with that. If DeVaris doesn't have a big day, but you keep Milligan occupied, great. On the field side, I really want to complex it up a bit. Like you've got veteran receivers, you've got an intelligent quarterback, really complicate things. You will see busts. As good as that DB room is in Saskatchewan, they had busts against Hamilton last week, miscommunications, and that's where the more read routes that you can add in, and by read routes I mean like let's say for like Unger on the outside, he might have like a go route, except if the halfback drops deep into coverage, that go route now becomes a dig route. Or if it's man coverage, that instead becomes a comeback route. There are different routes he can run based on the coverage he sees, and the quarterback and the receivers have to be on the same page. These are built into all professional offenses and all college offenses, but you can really make some of those complicated, and you can challenge the DBs to a point where busts become more and more likely. Now, there's a trade-off. There's also the chance that the quarterback and receiver aren't always on the same page, but given Arbuckle's experience, given the veteran group that they've got to that field side, actually both sides, I think that's a play you want to I think that's something that you want to try this week against Saskatchewan to see if you can get that football downfield. And again, those slot fades and those vertical concepts will do that as well. All right, JB, sorry, do you want to
Well, I'm just going to jump in there.
Yeah.
Are you going to try and run the ball more? Toronto is near the bottom running attempts. We thought they got away from it too early. Is that part of what you're looking at?
I don't know, because I want to see, I don't like going into another team's strength, and Saskatchewan does defend the run well. Now, you had I think last week Hamilton had pretty good yards per carry, but they only ran the ball 8 times or something like that, and so they didn't really get an opportunity to turn to the running game. I want to see how it's working. Your running back room is getting pretty thin. It's basically just Mayan Williams and Kevin Brown, who just got his uniform back today. I don't know how much you want to overload Williams, because I think they're going to be all over Williams. I think that's going to be a big part of their game plan. They're like, look, if we keep the running game away, they may not be able to do it. Let's see if Nick Arbuckle can beat us. I'm okay with that, but I don't want to run into that. So it depends on their plan. If they're loading up to stop the run, if they're really creepy and tight, I don't really want to have 13, 15 carries for Williams. But if they're playing straight up, and if you can get them to back off a little bit, yes. I just don't think you come into the game with that plan of attack. I think you keep them honest. It's there, and if it's working, you roll with it. And it's easier said than done. We have seen it abandoned when it's working, and I think that's something that Coach Dinwiddie has to be on this week. And if he does see that they're experiencing success in the run game, if Williams is having another good game, then yeah, let him run with it for sure.
Yeah, because my concern is just if Toronto is passing,
I know,
they just do not have the ability to beat you when the other team knows what you're going to do.
You know what I will add to my OCDC? I'll add this in late. Hamilton ran a really nice draw play last week against Saskatchewan. That's something we so rarely see Toronto do. I think they've run 2 draw plays in the Coach Dinwiddie era, running back draws. I wouldn't mind seeing that. So I don't think Saskatchewan is sitting on a play like that because they just don't see Toronto run it. But it was successful. You've got those aggressive linebackers, they will come hard when it's run, but they'll also fan out super fast. That's what happened I think it ended up being a 19-yard run for Hamilton on the draw, because they basically got turned, and then suddenly there was no one left in the middle there. I wouldn't mind testing them that way again as well, especially if they're sitting on pass and they're just dropping back into their zones or coming full speed on a blitz. I think
not to jump in on your stuff here, but I just think last thing is I just think Arbuckle has to run. He just has to. He has to carry out some of those fakes, and he has to at least have the defense respecting him a little bit. He can't not run at all. It just there has to be more running from him. I think if there were one thing I would really want to see.
And they did do that on the 2-point conversion last week, and it was wide open, where it was the last thing anyone was looking for. They play fake to Williams, then Arbuckle just like walked into the end zone for the 2-point conversion. Because you're right, they're not respecting him.
Calgary, they didn't even look at him. They didn't respect his play fake at all.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a good point. And you have to watch that. Now, will that one play be enough to reset Saskatchewan on that? Maybe for a little bit. But yeah, not for long. So you always, like, as a coach, you're always looking for that, and that's the guys in the booth too. They're watching on every single run play. They're saying, "Hey, are they going? Is our quarterback carrying out his fakes? Are they going with him? Are they respecting that?" And often, as a coach, as a play caller, I'll say to my guy in the booth, I'll say, like, "Let me know when that's there. As soon as they stop respecting that, we'll pull it and keep it." And often you get to the third quarter and suddenly you get the green light from upstairs where it's like, yeah, it's there now. And now we'll pull it and get a big quarterback run. So
defensively,
yeah.
I mean, Saskatchewan is good. Like they are very well rounded. They're not a deep threat team. They're a good running team. They're a good passing team. They're not spectacular either, but they are very efficient. They're sort of middle of the league in rushing yards, and they're second in passing efficiency. It's a well-rounded offense. Special teams is not as much of a threat. I think really what you're worried about is it's just a very effective team at moving down the field, because they can get you both ways. You can't load up on one. I think if from Toronto's point of view, I think you're going to have to play a little more reckless in times, especially without McManus. I thought, that first half they played fantastic. I wouldn't change anything. Without McManus, I think that the Argos have to be a little more unusual in what they're trying to do. For sure, I wouldn't try rushing. I don't think there's any point. Harris he's too good. He's a hard guy to sack. He knows exactly what's going to happen. I'm hoping they play a lot of man. I don't think you can give him zone. He's a veteran guy. He's going to pick apart that zone. He's going to pick apart pass rush. So I think the Argos kind of not being a big pass rush team is okay in this game. I think you want to play a lot of man. You want to kind of force him to try and throw contested throws. Against the run, you're going to have to maybe you go for like a 4 or 5 man front. Give Saskatchewan some looks that you haven't shown on film. I think you have to kind of get a little bit desperate here. I think you have to try. You can't just line up and play. I think they're going to have to try to surprise Saskatchewan with some defensive looks they haven't shown, and it's going to be on those DBs to be able to hold up in man coverage. A combination of, like, you want to play man under, and you want to play even some zero. I think you're going to have to take risks as to defense, because you can't just play 20-20 against Saskatchewan, because they're going to score. You have to play more aggressive against this team, and that might not work, but I think it's worth it, because I would rather lose and let them score 40, trying things, than lose like 28-7. I think the defense is going to have to be more aggressive, more unusual. So that's really what I'm hoping for. Like, if I'm the defensive coordinator, I'm trying to give them some looks they haven't seen, whether it be like a 5-man front or some more kind of exotic looks in the defense, in pass defense. But he's going to be a hard guy to trick. I'm just not sure how you can slow them down, other than being able to stick with your man. And I hope that they can.
And they did play well in man coverage last week. They just got burned on well-covered receivers. Like, receivers just made plays.
No, I know.
So, that's not going to happen every game. So
defensively, obviously you got to clean that up. Those guys have to make those plays when they're in position. If you're in phase, you have to make that play. You just can't let a guy catch a ball over top of you uncontested.
Sometimes it's like under their arm, like through their legs. It was unreal last week.
I just don't know. I mean, if with McManus gone, I would probably lean towards more guys on the line rather than linebackers.
JB, neither of us hit our one thing last week, and the Argos lost, and so maybe they'll make a better effort this week to hit our one thing, and that will lead to an Argos victory. My one thing this week is I want 2 completed passes of 25 plus air yards, and that's so it's not like sideline to sideline air yards like on those deep comebacks. I want 25 yards pushed downfield, 2 passes, 25 yards in the air or more, straight downfield vertically. I think if they hit 2 of those, I think this game is going well for the Argos. I think this is one they can pull out and win. What is your one thing this week, JB?
I'm gonna keep it, I'm gonna keep it reasonable here. I'm looking for 1 interception. Doesn't have to be a pick six, just an interception. Well, you might say, well, that's a terrible one thing, but let's start building something here, and I think let's start with that.
It's time for Put Me Down for 20. JB, one of us was on fire last week going 2-0. The other one of us went 0-2. And even things up a little bit more on the week. Nothing like your huge first week, mind you. But yeah, I hit both of mine. Winnipeg on the money line, plus 125. Vernon Adams over 300 passing yards. He had 301 for plus 125. You got a bit unlucky. Argos D plus 500 was a bit of a risk. And then Ottawa, Montreal was one that I know you've heard about.
I'm declaring now, I'm going to pick against the All Caps for the rest of the season. Even in Edmonton.
I cannot wait. I think this is shaping up to be an entertaining season of listening to you scream about the Red Blacks.
I'm out on the All Caps. What a! I mean, I know they didn't have their starting quarterback, but holy, what a terrible performance.
It was rough. My wagers for this week. So I'm now at 205 golden fleeces, 5 fleeces up on the year. I'm going to take Dejan Brissett touchdown at plus 330. I thought that was a huge number. And if I'm looking to stay away from Milligan, Brissett's often on the field side. He's a nice tall target for Arbuckle in the red zone. I think that's a nice price at plus 330. So that is where I'm putting my 10 Argo golden fleeces. For the rest of the league, I'm putting 10 fleeces on Calgary on the money line. Calgary underdogs at home against the Ottawa Red Blacks. Not huge underdogs, but underdogs nevertheless at even money. That just seems too good to pass up. So that is where I am wagering my 20 golden fleeces. JB, what are your plays for this week?
I see you're grinding out your rent money again. It's very exciting for everybody at home. For me, unafraid of risking life and limb with my golden fleeces, I'm going to take Kevin Mattal plus 260 to score a touchdown.
Well,
I thought he looked really nice. I think he should be a bigger part of their offense. I think he's a nice mismatch in the red zone. I like Mattal plus 260 touchdown.
Well, wait a second. So you're saying that I'm grinding up my rent money. My touchdown guy's plus 330. Your guy's plus 260. Who's grinding out their rent money?
Yeah,
here?
I didn't understand. I was going to leave that one alone. You sort of you were grinding out rent money and also throwing your money off a boat. So I wasn't sure which insult to throw at you. So
where are your other 10 fleeces going?
My league 10 fleeces. Speaking of throwing money off a boat, your Edmonton Elks at home, underdog, home dog, where I love to live, plus 230. Elks, I'm putting my faith in you.
Against the Alouettes.
Yep. I'm betting against the Alouettes at every chance I get here, but I will take the home dog, and I believe in you, Edmonton.
For 5 minutes, you're going to be so mad at Edmonton next week. You're going to write them off and Ottawa off next week.
Possibly, so. but for now, they are my home dog lock of the week trademark.
You are still plus, so you're at 214 golden fleeces. You are ahead in that regard still. We'll see how long that lasts. Let's get into challenge flag. Last week, I won the challenge. I went against your pick of Ottawa over Montreal. I thought that was an easy one, and so that evens us up. Your record on the year, still respectable, 5-3 overall, after going 2-2 this week. Let's see how you do in week 3 and which of your picks I will challenge. So Montreal at Edmonton. Are you going to hedge this, or are you that confident in your Elks?
I am going to hedge this.
God. Okay.
Because, there's nothing wrong with hedging out there, folks. So I am going to take the Alouettes to win that game.
This is a great time for our disclaimer as to why you should not take any of our betting advice and throw any of your money away, because here, that was JB's best bet of the week, and he's just gone against it in the very next segment.
Against it is I have hedged.
Okay.
A sharp.
Do not take any of our bets seriously, and never bet anything more than what you'd view as a reasonable cost of entertainment. Second bet, we've got Saskatchewan at Toronto. Are you going with the Argos or the Roughriders, JB?
You know what? I'm gonna go with Toronto, and even though I think that it's going to be incredibly hard, if I'm gonna quote another Toronto sports writer about heart of a champion, never doubt the heart of a champion. I never doubt the heart of a champion. And I think that the Argos at home are going to have what it takes to get this done.
Toronto doesn't lose at home, and 2 in a row at home. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is. Dinwiddie just doesn't do that. So, I like that pick as well. Ottawa at Calgary. This is a pretty tight one. It's almost even money. Where are you going here? Are you taking your Red Blacks, or are you staying true to your word?
It's very easy here. I will always bet against the All Caps, and I like the Stampeders against the All Caps.
Lastly, Winnipeg at BC. We don't know the status of Nathan Rourke yet. He was limited in practice today. Winnipeg handled BC without Kolaris. In Winnipeg, is it going to be a different story at BC Place? Where are you going?
This is a really hard one, actually. I thought about this on the money line, but the Rourke thing, BC is so great at home. I'm going to take BC. I'm going to bet that Rourke plays, and I think they get back. I think they win that at home.
I am going to throw my challenge flag on that one. I think it was always going to be that one anyway. If you'd taken Winnipeg, I'd probably throw the challenge flag on anyway, just because I think that's going to be a fun game to watch. And I'm honestly happy you took BC. I like Winnipeg a little better in this, only because if Rourke doesn't play, I think Winnipeg wins that game. If Rourke does play, Winnipeg has handled him. He has struggled against Winnipeg far more than any other team in the CFL. And so there's something that O'Shea's team is doing to give him problems. And it seems like every time he plays against the Bombers, even when BC wins, it's not usually because Rourke had a huge game. So I will throw my challenge flag on that. I am taking the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and we'll see who has the lead in that segment after this. JB, that just leaves us with our ticket giveaway. Something in the Water is giving away their tickets to the Argos game, every home game this season. All you have to do to enter on the week of a home game is look on social media. You can find me on social media at Coach Ben Grant on Blue Sky, or at Ben_Grant on Twitter. Look for my post promoting Something in the Water's ticket giveaway, and retweet it, repost it, and that automatically enters you into the contest, and you have a chance to win Something in the Water's tickets for 2 to the game. And our tickets for 2 this week were won by Ray Sunshine 25. So Ray Sunshine 25, you are going to see the Toronto Argonauts host the Saskatchewan Roughriders, courtesy of Something in the Water Brewing. I will get your particulars to Something in the Water so they can transfer you their tickets. It's going to be a good one, JB. Friday night, 7:30 p.m. You can catch Mike Hogan and myself on the broadcast on TSN 1050. You can join us at BMO Field and watch the game. It was such a great environment with it being so full last week for the home opener. I hope it can be a great crowd again this week, because when that place is buzzing, if you can give those fans some excitement, that is an awesome place to play and an awesome place to watch a football game. That will just about do it for us on this pregame walkthrough episode of the X's and Argos podcast. For JB, this is Ben Grant saying so long, and may all your pre-snap reads be good ones. I'll see ya.